All right, here we are. Okay, everyone, so those of you who are just arriving and joining us today, our 5 o'clock session will start here in one moment. Just be aware that if you came in through GatherTown, please be sure to exit out of your GatherTown tab and while you are in the Zoom. And then once you leave this session, just exit out of your Zoom window and you'll go back to the link you have to enter GatherTown. Thank you all so much. We have our second team here from Sam Sharpe Teachers College in Jamaica and the University of South Florida in Florida in the United States. I will go ahead and hand it over to our team. If you guys would like to go ahead and start sharing your screens and introducing yourselves, please have at it.
Thank you very much, Allison. We will go ahead and get started. So I appreciate the warm welcome. So my name is David Orsgren. I am an associate professor of STEM education at the University of South Florida on the St. Petersburg campus. And our team is going to be talking about our project, which is dealing with resources and podcasts for the international community. So I'll let Jessica introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Jessica Strauss. I am a high school teacher in Tampa, Florida, currently teaching math. I have a history background with education more at the elementary level until this year, and I have a really big passion for space education that I was able to kind of tie in a little bit to this project.
Good evening, everyone. I am Diane Clark. I'm a grade 4 teacher here in Jamaica. I teach at the Bow Hill Primary and Infant School. I'm truly excited to be here today.
Good evening, everyone. Diane Bowen. I am the head of the science department at the Sam Sharpe Teachers College in Jamaica. I've been a teacher educator for about 24 years, and I've been involved in the training of early childhood, primary, secondary, and special education teachers. I've been involved in training them to teach science. So what we're doing here with our project is something that I'm very passionate about, and I trust you'll enjoy and find something meaningful in our presentation.
So we thought it would be very important as we explaining what we're doing with our project to help kind of understand the progression as to how we got here, both as an individual team and then how the teams came together, and kind of so that you can see how the project morphed into what it was and what we're incredibly proud of and excited to keep going with it. So here at the University of South Florida, our project actually got started at the American Association of Physics Teachers. I attended our winter meeting in Orlando, Florida with a colleague of mine in Alan Feldman, and Rebecca gave a talk about WIPRO and what the program is about and what are what OAS ITEN and this opportunity to develop these international collaborations. And so Alan and I are part of a program that's sponsored through WIPRO. And so this is a science education fellowship where we're taking teachers in our area, specifically counties are Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco. Hillsborough County, for example, is the 7th largest school district in the United States. And so what we're doing is we're developing leadership skills within this community and these teachers. So we have teachers from kindergarten up through 12th grade that are teaching science in some capacity. So what we did was we reached out to our WIPRO teachers, our WIPRO fellows, and what was it that was important to us? And really for us, we felt that there were two main issues that we needed to focus on and stress. One is the idea that the world is changing and how STEM needs to be more inclusive, how there's too many individuals that don't get this interest in STEM and what STEM can do. They think, oh, well, STEM isn't for me. STEM isn't for, it's for this particular group. And so it's looking to see how can we get STEM to be inclusive for all. And that initially may not seem related, but it actually is very much related to the fact that there is an reduced interest in STEM fields and careers, which compounds those problems of getting more individuals into the STEM fields. And so this was what we thought initially with the USF group, what our team journey and how we started out with this project.
For us here at Sam Sharpe Teachers College, as I shared before, we're involved with the training of teachers. And as a science department, we were particularly concerned that the science instruction in our views was not being effectively done. And in Jamaica, there is this new emphasis on STEM education. So our curricula has been revised, placing emphasis on STEM education. And we were particularly concerned about our early childhood and our primary teachers in particular, because we felt that based on our conversations and our interaction with them and data that's out there, that many of them were not comfortable teaching STEM disciplines, in particular science. They felt that they lacked the competence, they weren't enthused, and many felt that they were ill prepared for the task. And so we felt as a department that one of our goals would have been to provide professional development opportunities to these teachers so that we could strengthen their capacity to effectively teach science. And while doing that, we were a part of a microscience initiative. And while doing some microscience workshops with teachers, our interaction with the Ministry of Education, we were made aware of the ITEN project, and we were encouraged to apply to ITEN to be a part of a project team. And we thought that this would have been something great because the goals of ITEN were in keeping with our own goals. And so that led to our being here as a part of this project team. And our journey thus far has been one that is very, other than the fact that we are learning so much from each other, but the passion and the enthusiasm that exists among the team is one that will continue beyond this project. And so I feel like what we are doing here, the journey has not ended, it will continue because we have seen the value in what we're doing and the potential impact it will have on others.
So when we came together, it was interesting to see the dynamics of what we were looking at and the differences, but yet there's commonality. So with USF, like we said, it was social justice, interest in STEM. And Diane, what was your interest again?
For us, we wanted to focus on professional development, and we wanted for our teachers to become more enthused about the teaching of science so that that enthusiasm can be translated to their students. And I think when we examined what we both wanted to focus on, effective pedagogy, effective practices, and providing resources and support for our teachers was something that was common to both institutional teams.
Exactly. Those was our, and when that was what we agreed upon was our area of overlap. You know, how do we implement social justice into it? How do we get more people interested in STEM? How do we do these professional development activities? And how do we get teachers excited about it? Well, it's providing the resource, it's providing the support network for the teachers to be able to do that. And so that was really where we saw the overlap for what our goals were and the common interests in the themes, and so how we could be able to move forward.
So we had wanted, obviously, to do a lot of this more face-to-face and in person, and then of course COVID hit. In fact, the stressors of COVID ended up having us lose some of the members of our team even. So lots of adjustments were made, but one of the things we wanted to do was provide resources for teachers and educators that are already out there so that there's not this need to reinvent the wheel. We also wanted to communicate some of the interests and knowledge that we have as educators and professionals in one kind of a one-stop shop. So you can see on the screen, there is, this is our website. I'm going to take us there in just a second, but there's a QR code if you would like to use that. And I will also make sure to put the web address in the chat so that you guys can utilize this resource for yourselves. Let's take a look at the actual website. So If you take a look here, we're going to get into this tab over here about Inquiry Podcast and Class with Dr. R. But one of the ones I wanted to really showcase today while we're talking about the website is this resource tab. If you visit the different links inside it, you're going to see a whole database of different resources that you can utilize with your students in your classrooms. And it's also a great resource, not just for science, but for all subjects. You'll even find some stuff for reading and writing incorporated into these lessons. So we try to break it down into the title of the lesson, the grade levels it'll hit, and the content areas, a brief description, and of course, the links to these different resources. The great thing is this is all free resources, and I know that one of the things that we're going to try to incorporate into the website is looking at grants that are outside of the United States. So if you notice, we also have a tab called Grants. And in this tab, we have a lot of information to get that money to help kind of enhance your lessons, or to go to different conferences, or other grants that'll get you the education you need or the resources that you need to help make your lessons really pop. One of the other big things we have in here is our pedagogical strategies. So one of the things that our group was really passionate about was inquiry-based learning, and we wanted to make sure that we kind of touched on some of the different ideas of what is inquiry learning, and how can you effectively put this into your classroom and your regular everyday lessons in the classroom. So we have different types of inquiry and lessons in here that you can kind of check out how they are presented, as well as handouts, and again, various resources that how you can facilitate inquiry-based learning within your classroom. I would be remiss if I didn't mention you can contact us and also check out who we are a little bit in our Who We Are tab. And of course, we have our contact button. So we would love to also hear from you, of course. And everything is in our one-stop shop right here. What I'll do is I'm going to post the link in the chat, and we can come back and revisit the website towards the end of the of our presentation if we'd like to get into it a little bit more, but I don't want to monopolize the time.
And I already posted the link in the chat for you, Jessica, so you don't have to worry
You're
about
on
it.
top of it. Look at you. All right, so I will move us on to our next slide.
Okay, so like we mentioned before, one of the, as you can see from the website, one of our products is a podcast. Now, this podcast was born out of our inability to do what we really wanted to do initially, which was the professional development sessions. And you heard Diane and David spoke about that earlier. So as a team, we decided what can we do to really stimulate that interest that teachers really need in order to, communicate that with your students, because when teachers are excited about something, students, for some strange reason, they get excited about it also. So we want that interaction. We want to first ignite that passion within the students, and we couldn't do it face-to-face. The professional development session, at least for now, was off the table. So we decided, okay, as a team, we could do podcasts. And so we came up with the idea, and we said we're going to set out on doing a series of podcasts which we would cover over a period of time. And of course, these are scheduled, but they're tentative to change. Now, these podcasts, and we have, I don't know if Jessica wants to play a part of our first podcast, which was a collaboration. This one was entitled International Collaboration in STEM. Oh, the link is not on that, it's on the other page. Okay, so we'll get to that in a minute. So we wanted to do this podcast, and like I said, that was a reason. Now from this, we've really learned a lot. We've really learned a lot, and we realized that even though, especially for Jamaica, in our context, podcasts are not really something that is quite prevalent. But from interaction, from the feedback that we've gotten from colleagues who have actually listened in on it, some of them were actually excited about the idea. And I heard a colleague of mine even say she even went and did further, listened to further podcasts on YouTube, which is really what we want, that interest, to stimulate that interest within our educators, to get them excited about the idea of science, to get them excited about the idea of STEM. And we are learning, we're still growing because this is new. So we're still learning from it. We're still gathering feedback from this. And of course, this will inform the topics that we cover going forward. We have already outlined some topics that we'd like to cover, but this is not set in stone. Of course, it is dependent on the needs of the educators, what their interests are, and adjustments will be made accordingly. Okay. Oh, so
welcome everybody to our first episode of the International Collaboration in STEM podcast. We are here today with two of our teams from the 2020 project teams cycle from the University of South Florida and from Jamaica Sam Sharpe Teachers College. I'm going to have our participants introduce themselves here shortly, but just briefly, just to give you all an understanding of what ITEN is and where it comes from. ITEN is an initiative of the Organization of American States, also known as the OAS, and ITEN promotes collaborative work to solve problems of policy and practice with relation to teacher education in STEM at the early childhood and upper secondary levels. We pay special attention to promote policies and practices that encourage equity for the STEM education of girls and women. And it's also networked community of educational leaders in the Americas. So ITEN provides an annual cycle of engagement opportunities, such as this project team initiative. And we also provide competitive funds to participating ministries of education and other teacher education institutions.
I'm going to skip past a little bit, but you can kind of get the idea that we interview each other in this one. And
so we've got a couple of questions.
For me particularly, in recent times in Jamaica, the government came in with a new curriculum that was strongly embedded with STEM activities. And one of the things that I found as a primary school teacher was that we weren't necessarily equipped with the strategies or the pedagogy to really teach these scientific skills and processes. So I thought that engaging in a project such as this, that would better equip not just me, but I've been learning, and whatever we learn from this, whatever product comes from this, can better or can be something that my fellow teachers in Jamaica and not those in Florida can learn from. So it was very important that I do this so that students, not just the teachers, because the teachers are going to impact the students. So by impacting the teachers, we will be impacting the students eventually.
all right, does that give a little taste?
Absolutely, Jessica. So as we're going along, one of the things we discovered that as a group, we start coming up with different ideas. Oh, we can do this. Oh, we can do that. It's like, oh, well, if we're talking about inquiry, so, I work with a lot of pre-service educators, again, kindergarten through 12, done physics ed research with physics courses. But one of the things with COVID that, as Jessica's already said, we did lose a couple members, but as educators, we're also putting a lot of our information online. And so as we were developing the website, we thought, it's like, oh, well, I can put up some information, when I talk about inquiry. And so we kind of created the idea of Class with Dr. R. And when we're doing workshops where we're working maybe with future students or current teachers and help them to improve their practice, but sometimes what about those who are also developing classes and using materials for their methods courses and their pedagogical courses? And so after a little talk with USF Legal and individuals talking about intellectual property, who actually owns what within the university, what they said it was okay for me to basically post my website. And so my courses that I develop, and so what I'm doing with my pre-service teachers in science methods, all of my different courses we're going to be starting to upload. So what do we do this week? And so, for example, we're looking at inquiry basics, talking about we're looking at engineering by design, we're looking at the investigative science learning environment. So all of the things, these approaches that I use in my classroom with my future teachers, I can make readily available to everyone as well too. So the idea is that you can look at particular topics and follow along, what it is that I teach to my students. So you, or it can be, we're going to be going through like this week we did this, look at these videos and see kind of how the lessons have come together. So the idea is to provide additional resources to students to learn about engineering by design, to learn about investigative, to learn about the 5E cycles, but also as educators to see like, okay, look at how the lesson is progressing, looking to see how it's being developed. And I might want to take some of these key concepts and key themed ideas and put them into my own classroom. So that's one of the things that we're going to be expanding on with this particular aspect of the website.
Okay, so as I mentioned about the website, some of the things I already talked about that in the future of what we would like to do is obviously we want to add to the resources, tie in hopefully some ones that with other languages, although a lot of them do have some of the lessons in both Spanish and in English. We want to kind of create some sort of blog or somewhere we can, kind of add into our podcast, perhaps have some sort of distribution list, and also look into tying in best practices. But this is a great opportunity. I would love to ask you guys, what would you like to see in the website that would be helpful for you? And I saw that somebody added a resource, which I love.
And so as you're putting some of these ideas into the chat boxes, we've seen a lot of different threads where people are also kind of creating different websites. And so we would love to know, like we could definitely link yours if you want to link ours and tell us what really you want to learn and what would benefit you as a teacher.
Yeah, I see right here. Are we open to having people outside our team to be featured in the podcast? Yes, we were absolutely planning on doing stuff like that too. So if you're interested, we would love to have an email from you and we can add you into our podcast. We were also looking to tap into all kinds of resources outside of ourselves. So there was a mentioning of STEM on the cheap. Maybe we could even have some examples of interactions with students on there. We do have a list of standards for Jamaica and for the United States. We did both Common Core standards for the United States as well as Florida standards, which are a little bit different, so that you can kind of tap in and see what those standards are. Yeah, and that's something else we wanted to possibly extend, was creating some sort of section that talks about how to teach from a distance, because a hands-on science lesson becomes very different when you're in front of a computer. At the moment, our lessons are not directly linked to the curriculum in Jamaica, but we do have the topic or the unit of study connected to the resources, so that will help you to kind of narrow down what will tie into the lesson.
So the idea of resource persons was actually something that we had talked about, looking at having mentors. And so that way, if people are willing to try out some of these activities, but have someone that they can go to talk to who have done it in their own classrooms or teach about it. And so that is kind of an idea that we have been tossing around as well.
These are all wonderful, and keep them coming as we move on through the rest of our slideshow, but I would love to keep hearing anything else you guys have.
Okay, so like I made mention of before, we just did our first in a series, in what we're hoping to be a series of podcasts. And you just heard a clip from, or an excerpt from our first one. So we're planning to look on other like STEM, women in STEM. And I'm glad that like David said before, and Jessica, we were looking at actually inviting persons on to actually take part in our podcast for some of these topics that we're planning to do. And these topics, of course, are based on feedback from educators. And of course, if you have anything you would like to listen, any topic that you would find interesting, you can just link that in the chat and let's discuss.
So, and yes, as we mentioned before, keep telling us the topics you might want to hear.
Yeah.
So with regards to our future work, as you have been hearing there, a number of the ideas that you have shared are things that we're contemplating. And as I said earlier, as a team, we want for what we have started here to continue beyond the life of this project. So yes, as someone had asked in the chat, we intend to do workshops focused on integrating STEM and teaching the various STEM areas effectively. We also want to have a mentoring component as a part of what we do to support teachers. So it's one thing to have a workshop and to expose persons to things that they can do, but it's good to have someone or a group that you can interact with as you try to navigate the teaching of these various areas effectively. So these are two of the things that we really want to focus on outside of what we have already done and intend to continue to improve. Implementing our workshops to build capacity among our teachers and providing supports through mentoring so that they can continue to grow and to be effective as STEM educators. So with regards to the implications or the applications of what we've been doing so far, or I'd prefer to say the usefulness, as a teacher educator, I have found it very, very, very useful. And so even the content that is in our website, I have already begun to use it in my content and methodology courses that I expose or pre-service teachers to. So I have found it in my own practice very, very useful. And I've also gotten feedback from other teachers who have found the resources very useful. Just there was a voice clip. I'm not sure if you could access that so that they could actually hear one teacher speaking of.
There's a voice clip in this slide.
Oh.
Slide 3.
Here. Right there, is this it?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
While we wait on that, outside of the fact that I'm finding it useful in my own teaching, in Jamaica, all the teacher training institutions share curriculum. All the teacher institutions share a common curriculum. And so given COVID, we had to go online with a number of our courses, and we were preparing our courses and placing them in Moodle. And so what happened was that a lot of the online resources that were placed there included things that came from the website that we had. So I found it very useful because all of these activities and relevant content were right there already organized on our website. And I could pull from that to put in the courses that were related to the various topics that were there. So I find it very useful now, and it's helping other teacher educators, and I think it will be useful in my practice going forward. And also for the professional development activities that we want to engage our teachers in, these resources can also be a part of those engagements. And as I said before, teachers have actually been using some, and I'm not sure whether or not you will be able to hear the clip where one teacher shared how thrilled she was.
Are you ready for it?
Yes, you may go.
Having browsed through the ITEN website, I must say that as a primary school teacher, I especially liked the games demos that I saw there. As a fourth grade teacher, we teach living and non-living things, and so this site will come in handy in that my students can be immersed into a fun game, yet still learn the concepts that are being taught. So good job, ITEN.
So as I said before, that speaks to the fact that what we have done has utility and persons are finding it useful, and we will continue to push forward because we realize that indeed this is both useful and meaningful to the teachers who are out there.
So much like Diane said, I'm definitely using a lot of this in my own teaching in classrooms as well too. And here, one of the biggest issues I find is that there is just so much information that is out there and that is available to teachers, to pre-service teachers, and it gets very overwhelming at times. Oh, I'm teaching biology now, but I'm teaching here, and oh, I have to go to this website for this, and I want to do this here. Well, this is great for simulations, but how do I get the lesson integrations? And so trying to navigate the internet and resources for educators is incredibly challenging. So if our goal is to try and bring everything in together and to start to be a one spot where I can start here, look for a couple things, and then expand into different disciplines. If I want to do integrations with STEM, I go to this tab, I go to this resource. If I want to I want to learn a little bit more about what is the 5E cycle. Okay, I can find that information here. So helping to really consolidate what are some of the key things that our in-service teachers need to know, as well as the pre-service teachers. So what information is really going to be out there. So we use that both in the university as well as a district-wide training. So a lot of our districts, for example, Pinellas is one of the other larger districts in the state. They have STEM academies. And so bringing in STEM trainings as a way for them to be able to show, this is how I can integrate all of these STEM lessons together. So one of the videos that'll be popping up is how do we do these STEM integrations? And so working with our partners within the community. And as was mentioned in kind of the comments, as educators, we know that we have the different standards. So looking at some of these pieces of information, looking at these websites, and how do we align them to the different grade levels? And so align them to the different standards. So in the United States, we have the next generation science standards. Though Florida hasn't adopted them, they're adopted in the majority of the states across the nation. So understanding how we can align them to the next generation science standards as well as the particular state standards. And in one of my courses, I teach my students or my future teachers, how do you write a grant? How do you go about and actually write the grant? And a lot of them are okay with learning how to do that, but their biggest challenge is, where do I go to find the grants? Yes, as an educator, at the university level, I know about National Science Foundation, Department of Education. So I know about these larger projects that suit my interest, but as a high school or as an elementary or a middle grades teacher, I'm typically not going to be writing a National Science Foundation grant. I'm going to be writing a grant for a project for my classroom. So by developing this repository for teachers to be able to go to, it's going to help them to know, like, oh, this is something I'm interested in. This is when it's due. Let me think about how I can do this. And so that can even be part of the mentoring aspect in the class with Dr. R. It's like, how do I write a grant? What are some of the key things that I want to be doing with these things? So these are all things that we kind of want to build in to help our future educators, as well as our current teachers, as well as our current university level faculty to kind of help everyone grow, because we're a team, we're all in this together.
All right, well, I wanted to make sure I shared our contact information. If you would like to write down any of our email addresses, and all our contact information is also on our website. I saw a couple questions about YouTube channels and where we were going to have the podcast. And as of right now, we're trying to make our website kind of be the one-stop shop for both the podcast, for videos, for links. And I saw a couple of recommendations that I thought were neat, like adding in for special abilities, which would be an interesting thing to add in. And I know grants was something I noticed a lot of comments about. And I will say that some of the resources are free and sometimes have even ways to send experiments into space, for example. One of the conferences I go to is based in Houston, Texas, through NASA. And I know that we have people come to that conference on grants from all over the world, because we have Canada, Mexico, Australia. I think there was some Brazil and Venezuela. We had Italy represented there. So I know that there's definitely grants for things out there, not just US citizens. And now I just want to see if anybody has any questions for us or the website.
Or any more suggestions for podcast topics, website resources, or lessons that you would like to learn from other faculty and what they teach their students.
Incorporating some math topics I see in there.
One of our goals is we would actually like to get some of our classroom footage. So myself teaching in the classroom, Diane teaching in her classroom, and actually show not just a lesson that I would give to my students via the internet, but also look at how it's being done within the classroom. So that is also one of our future goals. With regard to circuits, you can always email me. Happy to share all my circuit stuff. Yes.
So maybe incorporating a podcast about learning styles. Is that what you mean by that?
I apologize. I don't read Spanish, so someone could translate that.
I think Allison's on it.
The question is,
Do a podcast in math. Is that what that is?
correct, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe having a focus of math instead of just science. You know, we're pretty heavy on science, but the good thing is math and science go kind of hand in hand. And can you tell me what TVET is? Anybody know what that is?
That's lost. Biodiversity. Yeah, but
Conservation activities. Yeah, there's a lot of that too.
And that's something that some of us were looking at, is like, how do we teach within our environment within the area? So in Florida, for example, we're part of the Tampa Bay region, so marine science, oceanography are very key topics. So that can be some things we can definitely add in and look at.
I know a grant that I think is accessible for all countries is Earthwatch. It's a very highly competitive grant to get into, but it is very heavy on ecology, biodiversity, and climate change.
Got another question here in Spanish. Sorry, it keeps jumping around. It says, Do you know of a podcast or resources for STEM that help to develop communicative concept, oral communicative competencies in school?
I do not know of any, to be honest. I don't know if any of my colleagues do.
No, I'm not.
Nope.
That enhancement specifically, no. I think it could be how you present it. Like for example, being online as an educator, one of the big things I had to do is really make big adjustments to meeting the needs of my students virtually. And I utilized Flipgrid so that students could verbally communicate instead of having to type everything out, because at the time I was teaching third graders. So 8-year-olds want to type one sentence, whereas 8-year-olds want to talk for 10 minutes. So it was great to have the Flipgrid, and that way they could record themselves talking instead of requiring them to type stuff out. In terms of actual specific grants or resources, that off the top of my head, no.
With TVET, Technical Vocational Education and Training, we don't have anything on the website. That is something that we can put in as a future goal. Actually, when I was a high school teacher, I hate to say it was over about 20 years ago, I was actually at a technical high school. So there's definitely a lot of integrations in STEM with technical trainings, from cosmetology to photography to diesel and small engine repair. So there's a lot of integrations you can do with STEM with TVET, and I'd be happy to chat offline, but we just haven't put that into the website yet in terms of integrations.
And I would say that certain things on the website would incorporate that, like even there's a link for Civil Air Patrol, for example, which is got a lot of real world application and hands-on for the kids, and even is a program where they can tap into the local Civil Air Patrol to learn how to fly and become a pilot. So there are some resources in there that would definitely lend themselves to that.
So I think we're almost at our time. Oh, Allison, go ahead.
Almost. I was just going to translate. You've got this last question, or kind of a follow-up from Jesus regarding the question on oral communicative competencies in school. And he said, does an elevator pitch or storytelling, do you all think that that could be a resource of that for developing that?
Yes, I mean, I've had students in my pre-service courses teach their content via telling stories and via creating their own stories, like going through the water cycle as a water molecule. I don't know if that's exactly ways that you can think about it, but absolutely there are things that you can do. Well, at this time, I think it would be thank you very much. I love the questions. They were excellent. I love the ideas. Definitely giving us something to possibly do for the next round for us to work with this project.
I'm from Peru. Cool. I was there many years ago.
Thank you very much for the compliments, and I'm going to put my contact in the chat box just in case if anyone wants it and didn't get to do it with this screen.
I'll put the website back in there again. And that has all our info and resources and everything. So please, we would also love to hear if you use something and how it worked for you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It was our pleasure sharing with you what we've been working on. And thank you for your positive feedback.
Thanks for your time. Really appreciated it.
Wonderful. Thank you, team, so much. I'm just going to show this last screen here for everyone. just so you can remember where to go. So thank you, participants, for joining us for this session. Thank you to our lovely team members from Sam Sharpe Teachers College in Jamaica and University of Southern Florida. We really appreciate you guys and all the hard work. These recordings will be on YouTube, as well as we will have them on our website at some point. So if you missed at the beginning or some of it cut out for you, no worries. You will have a recorded version for your viewing pleasure in the future. So thank you, team, so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording here, and then we'll stop the live stream. So if anybody's watching live stream, just know that that will come back on eventually. And those of you team members, you all are welcome to hang around, or you can go enjoy the rest of Gather Town. Any of you who are new with us right now, who have just arrived for our next session, panelists that are here, please just hang in with us. You guys will get started right at 6 o'clock. And those of you participants who will be here for the next session will be delivered in Spanish with English interpretation, just so you are aware. And the interpretation option will be at the bottom of your screen. You'll be able to choose between English and Spanish. So you should see that there. And we'll go ahead and we'll wait a few moments then for our team to be prepared and for more participants to join in, and then we will begin at 6 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.